I had been in town for 4 days, on a roof. I hadn't meant to be there that long. I'd just gone up to check a pigeon trap I'd set last year and been cornered by a paper sack which kept blowing at me in a scary way. The roof was near the office of Stephen Vone. He edits a pull-out section. I thought he might lend me the money to get home. "Hey Buzz, looking shit," said Vone. He always calls me by the wrong name. He said he needed a piece on street sausage vendors and offered me 200 quid if I sampled 30 sausages and filed by Friday. The angle was, we don't know which ones make you sick. Susie said £200 was very low for 2,000 words. Not as low as £20, I said, which is what you paid me for being sick in that documentary. By 3 o'clock the next afternoon, I'd drawn a sausage. 2 days passed in very similar fashion. I told Susie I must be a writer because I had writer's blank. She said this was balls and told me to get out and eat some sausages. "It's Thursday now, so you'll have to eat them all today." By 10 a.m. I'd scoffed 14. The more I ate, the less I felt like walking, so the last 6 had come from the same wagon. The vendor kept peering at me as I sat and wrote. When I went to buy number 15, he said, "I'm telling Turkish Bob about you. He don't like people getting nosy on his meat." 16 sausages later, I'd had an extra one to impress Vone. I was prodding at a shop demo laptop in Dixon's. I detailed my test method, feeling bloated and toxic. The nausea thickened as I realized there was no way of telling which sausage might be most responsible for what level of illness. "May I ask what you're doing?" It was a woman's voice. "Do I know you?" I said. "Not exactly," she laughed, "but you're no doubt experiencing that strange frisson of talking to someone who seems familiar because you know them so well from their photos. Isn't it a weird feeling?" "What photos?" "Oh, come on, look," she said, and rested her chin on the back of her hand, glanced to the left, and sucked in her cheeks. "What's that?" I said. "Oh, honestly, why do you think everybody's looking at me?" "Well, because you're making quite a noise." My z was cut off by the book of her because. "Because I'm Ruby Fuss. I write on a Friday, and I couldn't help noticing that you're writing a story on that computer." I started to explain. "Hang on," she said, and dug a tape recorder out of her bag. "I haven't had a decent story since Bolan died." She told me Bolan was her terminally ill dog, and that she'd charted his death every week for 4 months, and that all London was weeping. God, it's been pants getting stuff for the column. I was going to have to get myself drug-raped for this week, she said, brandishing a jar of tablets. She gave me one and started asking questions. No one has been that interested in me since school, when I nailed my hand to my head. As we talked of salty meat and Turkish Bob, I began to sweat and dribble. The shop became a giddy plug hole of plastic, price cards, and a father and child asking if I had finished with the laptop. I opened my mouth to answer, but words don't really form in a boiling geyser of pork. Ruby Fuss said, "Perfect." In a phone box 24 hours later, pale and shaking, I told Vone I had my piece on a disc. I've called it De Botulis Calidis, and it takes its form from a scientific paper. Shall I bring it round? Vone explained that my piece had been reprioritized since Ruby Fuss had come up with something very similar, that not only mentioned sausages, but a guy writing about them on a shop computer and then puking on a kid. Altogether a much better framing than mine. "That was me," I said. "Well, we don't want the same piece twice." But I was commissioned. "Grow up," he said. I'm ripping you off. Then he asked me how I felt. Then he said he'd just decided to write a piece about the abuse of freelance writers, and could he use my story since it would really illustrate the point. But I was sick about 10 times, I said. I could hear him already tapping on the keyboard. Then I could hear him asking me to send in my disc anyway, as a perfect verite example of the sort of work that was being ripped off. I got no money, I said. We agreed on a price of £10. The girl at reception had a message from Vone. Look up, it said. I looked up. A camera went flash. He says your photo will add genuine pathos, said the photographer. And I agree. Both articles appeared the next day. Both stated that 98% of street sausages contained lethal microbes and fly eggs, and mentioned in passing that Turkish Bob was a bastard. 4 days later, he found me and pulped me with a griddle.
All alone.